It's time to hear it from Harlan. Utah Director of Athletics Mark Harlan takes you behind the scenes with the Utes, the Pac-12, and collegiate athletics. Now here's your host, Mike Lagerschul.
Welcome to the March edition of the Hear It From Harlan podcast. Coming up, we'll take a look at what's happening with Utah's teams during the late winter and early spring sports season. Tournament time just around the corner in Vegas for the men's and women's basketball teams. During our middle block, Jimmy Perkins, a senior attacker for men's lacrosse, will join Mark for his one-on-one interview. And in our final segment, lots of football talk, spring ball underway, and some great questions sent in via social media from our listeners. So, Mark, we'll get to those as well. Mark, month of March, my favorite one of the year, tournament time around the corner. Lots going on. Great to see you. How are things?
Good to see you too, Mike. Things are going great. Really excited about the momentum that has carried forward from the fall into our spring sports. And, you know, as you mentioned, March is a terrific month. It's the month that we call go time in these parts because the winter sports are at that point in time where, you know, postseason, which they all train, whatever sport they're in. Plus, combine that with the start of our spring sports and really some early returns that we're all really excited about. So it's nothing but a lot of work going on by a lot of different people, but excited about what's to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about gymnastics a bit to start things. They had a season-high score at number 3 UCLA a few weeks ago, and then they defeated number 13 Washington on Sunday to wrap up the first-ever Pac-12 regular season championship, so they've got a postseason and a regular season title now in gymnastics. And Missy Reinstetler, who was our guest, Mark, back in January, had a big score on bars, also floor to help the Utes take down the Gym Dogs. They've had a wonderful season, 10-0 so far. Number 4 in the country is their latest ranking.
Well, they did a great job. It's really fun. I don't know if all of our fans really knew that there would be a regular season championship this year, and that was based on the round robin. You know, everyone playing pretty much everybody, so why not do a championship? But if you think about the fact that we've earned this on the road primarily, and with so many new routines and so many young people, new coaching staff dynamic, you know, I think it's just another incredible, you know, really attribute to this program to be able to win like that on the road at Pauley Pavilion, on the road, as you said, in Washington and others. We've got Stanford coming in here Friday night, so it'll be exciting to have the Red Rocks back. They've been gone so much, and I'm excited about Missy. I just saw her earlier this morning. She was walking to class and doing her thing, and she's really come on and got healthy. And so really excited about them and really hope that we see everybody out Friday night. Yeah,
and also the Pac-12 championships coming up March 21st at the Maverick Center. Get your tickets if you have not. That's a great venue for gymnastics with the podium format. So, again, March 21st, get your tickets out. The Maverick Center, the Utes try to win regular season and postseason this year in gymnastics. That should be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And just a reminder to everybody, I think we'll be in the afternoon session, I think, for that.
Yes, evening session.
Yeah, excuse me. The evening session. And really just the crowd makes such a big difference. We won the regular season championship. We obviously want to get that team championship at the tournament as well. So excited about having them here in Salt Lake over the next few weeks.
Yeah, speaking of Pac-12 postseason, it's time for basketball in Vegas. Mark, the women's team down there this week at the Mandalay Bay. Utah, the number 8 seed. In fact, Brenna Maxwell earned first team all-freshman honors just announced today. And then the men's team is down there as well at the T-Mobile Arena March 11th and 14th. I know a lot of people from Salt Lake head down I-15 to catch the tournaments. It's always a fun experience, and we'll see what the men and women can do down there in Vegas over the next couple of weeks.
Well, I was thinking about the freshman honors. You know, between our women's team and our men's team, I think we had about 15 kids eligible for the freshman honors this year. Find me another school in the country that had 15 plus eligible for that. But Brianna did a great job. Listen, we've talked about this before. It's been a tough run for both programs in some respects, because obviously when you're young and trying to win games on the road, it becomes so hard. And I think it's toughening up our programs in a way that I think we're going to really see pay dividends in the near future. But now is a time, you know, to celebrate both, right? We've got the men having senior day this week, one senior. And of course, you know, big game against Colorado that we need to take care of. And then with our women, as you mentioned, you know, they stayed over in Los Angeles. I think they're doing some really good team bonding, practicing along their bus journey on the way. I think they stopped in Ventura for a practice and getting ready for the Huskies on Thursday. I'll get a chance to fly out and support them. But, you know, I'm excited about the future of these programs, but I'm really hoping that they can make some noise before the end of the year, both programs.
Absolutely. Skiing as well, Mark, head towards NCAA's coming up on March 11th in Bozeman, Montana. They were second at the RMISAs this past weekend. They had some people missing because of world competition. They have been dominant in the West all year. In fact, women's Nordic skier Guro Hjortheim and men's alpine skier Joachim Lean earned RMISA MVP honors. And again, NCAA's coming up for that program. And look at the spring, Mark. I mean, softball, baseball, underway, tennis team, swimming, diving at Pac-12s as well. But softball, how about this? A 12-2 start for Amy Hochschrew. They took down number 14 Northwestern in their opener, and they only have 2 losses. Both to ranked teams are off to a good start.
Yeah, well, let's start with skiing. It was so fun to have them, compete. Soldier Hollow to watch Nordic, and then Alpine up at Park City over the last few weekends. That's the first time in 2 years that we've competed locally, which is still a head scratcher.
Right.
We got some
great
mountains.
venues.
We got some mountains up there that apparently we just needed to get the dates right for everybody. But fun to watch, fans come out and support them. And that program, here we go. It's go time for them too. And you mentioned the joy and sometimes the challenge of having these strong international skiers. They do have obligations, but they will all be ready to go for the national championship. Spence Eccles likes to ask me that a lot. Will they all be there? Yes, they will all be there and ready to defend the championship. Softball and baseball, right? So softball, to have one day of practice outdoors.
I know.
Before they got going and to go on this run that they've had, a 12-2 start. You mentioned the ranked teams we've beat. The way we're doing it, strong pitching, really good hitting. I think the future is now for this team, and Amy's got them going. Baseball had a little bit of a, kind of a setback, I would say, very minimal setback against a really good San Antonio team that had some really good pitchers. But, again, not a lot of practice time.
Right.
The weather this week is keeping them indoors again. But, as Billy tells me, we got better from weekend to weekend, and I think we just grind until we get a chance to play at home, and we look forward to doing that. Lastly, swimming and diving. We had a great women's championship up in Seattle last week. The men just left this morning. Divers will leave Friday. I think we're going to see some records in the pool again this weekend like we saw last week.
Yeah, in fact, the men crushed number 21 USC in the final meet of the regular season, so they've had a great year.
Whenever you can crush USC.
Absolutely.
Let's celebrate that. That's always just, every win's important, but that one just seems doubly so.
Some mean more than others is what you're saying.
Did I say that out loud?
No, I did for you. So
I
took the words out of your mouth and it came out of mine.
I love it. Let's go.
All right. Speaking of spring sports, lacrosse already off to a good start, 3-2 record. They won at Jacksonville on Saturday. They've had 3 home contests already. Great crowds coming out to Rice Eccles. And when we come back, we'll talk to one of their star players, senior attacker Jimmy Perkins. He'll sit down with Mark for his one-on-one interview when we come back in just a moment with the Hear It From Harlan podcast.
Time now for Utah's head man to catch up with one of Utah's star student athletes. Once again, here's Utah Athletics Director Mark Harlan on the Hear It From Harlan podcast.
Well, as always, one of the best things about the podcast is when we have a chance to talk to one of our incredible student athletes. And today we have Jimmy Perkins, the pride of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and a great, actually the captain of our lacrosse team this year, coming in with 17 goals and 2 assists. Just a fabulous young man. We've had a chance to get to know each other since he transferred in from Robert Morris. But Jimmy, thanks for coming here today.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It should be fun.
Well, I think it will be fun because it gives us a chance for folks listening to learn a little bit about you, but also we can talk a little bit about lacrosse and how far we've come in such a short period. Yeah. But first of all, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How's the season going?
I'm good. A good team has a really good feel right now. Didn't really necessarily have the start we wanted to at the beginning of the season, but we really rallied together, and I think we're just in a really good spot right now. We're getting back to our roots, especially after dropping those 2 close games to Lehigh and Air Force. Kind of just came together and talked that those teams didn't really beat us. We beat ourselves in those games, and that was something that we wanted to take pride in this year. And we just got back to work that week of practice going into Furman and got back to our roots of what we thought Utah lacrosse was. And since then, I think we've been able to piece together some good games and try to keep this rolling here.
You mentioned about what Utah lacrosse is, and I've seen a lot of comments from Coach about that. You're talking about. Why don't you describe for our listeners what does that mean? What does Utah lacrosse? Because it's such a young program and it's building its identity. But what does that mean to you?
Yeah. Well, like you said, just we're in a unique situation starting the program out here, and we want to set the standard for the future teams of this program. And Coach's goal and our goal is to create the best program in college lacrosse. And I think for us, you do that by doing the little things at a very, very high level. And take care of the things that you can control. I mean, there's effort is always there. ground balls. Coach always prides just the little things. We want to change the game and make teams want to start to play our style. I mean, you see us diving out off of every end line. It's those little plays in a game that you might not think are a big deal, but they add up in the long run. And just bring that gritty, fun, fast-paced edge to us every week.
Control the controllables. In other words, your effort. Because it is interesting, the teams that have come through here over the last year and a half, I mean, you look at them and they've been doing it for so long, and we're so young in what we do. But what's really interesting is I've gotten to know you guys is, of course, lacrosse is in the blood of all of your teammates. You guys have been doing it forever. So a little bit about the game. Let's talk about the game of lacrosse for our folks listening that haven't come, who we strongly urge to come out and watch play. We'll talk about attendance and where that is right now. But talk a little bit about the game of lacrosse and why it's so awesome in your mind.
I just think that I don't think a lot of people realize how much of a combination of other sports it really is. I played hockey growing up, so it was like you had the contact, the full up and down pace. Schematically, it's very similar to basketball. I mean, if you take the guy at X, which is behind the net, away, it's 5-on-5 above the goal. And all those schematics, the two-man game, defensive slide, packages and everything, it's really similar to basketball in that sense, especially now that we have the shot clock too. And then you have your physicality of football, and you still see those hits and
you get to hit people with a stick, which my son has noticed a lot as you guys fly around. Well, just to amplify that story, Coach Kristoviak and Coach Holman have really developed a friendship.
Yep.
And they actually talk about the crossovers and some of the basketball plays and learning from each other.
Yeah.
It's been really neat to kind of watch that go down. So you guys are also really challenged with the travel. Matter of fact, there is no team that travels longer than our lacrosse team and the glamorous life that is. So you just returned from Jacksonville.
Yep.
So just take folks a little bit about that trip. So when you leave, when you come back, because everyone thinks, hey, you get to travel all over, it's awesome. But a little bit about that trip, which of course you came back with a victory.
Yep. Yeah. So it was a great weekend. But we left on Thursday morning, which is pretty typical for us. We fly into wherever it is. Most games are near airports, but sometimes you might have to bus after the flight. We luckily got in a little earlier than normal, got in around 9 o'clock Eastern time to the hotel, get settled in. We don't practice on Thursdays. Coach it's a lot easier just to give us the day off. We get to work earlier in the week, take a day, and then refresh on Friday. We'll get up, practice, have a couple team meetings and team dinners and whatnot. If we're in a specific area where there might be something cool to explore, we might go check that out with some free time, and then play our game Saturday. Fortunate enough to leave day of, but it was a little bit of a longer travel. We didn't have the direct flight, so we had some fun. We lost a couple bags on the trip.
Oh, boy.
So
here we go.
Coach wasn't a happy camper at 1 o'clock in the morning Saturday night in the Salt Lake airport. But so it just it makes everything fly by though. These next couple of weeks especially. I mean, we get back either in the middle of the night Saturday going into Sunday morning, or sometimes we travel back on Sunday, and then we have 3 days to prepare for our next opponent before we're back on the road.
And, of course, the expectations that I have, Coach has, and for everyone around the program is, despite all that and the challenges, we still expect you guys to perform in the classroom, which lacrosse has just done a fantastic job of that. Well, let's talk a little bit about you. You came here from Robert Morris. You're in a master's program here, I believe, in real estate development in our business school, which is just incredible. But why come to Utah, right? I mean, you had to really believe, I'm sure, in a lot of different ways. So a little bit about your decision-making to transfer to Utah and be a part of this whole start.
Yeah. So I was in a little bit of a unique situation too. I mean, I'm a double red shirt. I grew up in Pittsburgh. I had the opportunity to go to a school very close to home. And for me, it was more once I found out I would have this extra 2 years of eligibility. I had a great experience. Robert Morris, those guys were awesome. And Coach McMahon, be forever grateful for that opportunity. It's the only school that gave me a chance to play Division I lacrosse. And but I was ready to just experience something new. I couldn't imagine staying in Pittsburgh for another 2 years. And I felt like I wanted to just at least explore my options. And I did that and asked for my release just in mind that I still might go back there.
Sure.
And once I visited here, I was like, no, I'm not going back.
Was it a combination of just being out here, being a trailblazer, seeing the potential, Coach Holman, the staff? I know it's an all-star staff of anyone that, is part of lacrosse and growing up in lacrosse. Was it all those things that came together for you?
Yeah, it was all of that. And that would be the main thing I'd say is the coaching staff. I mean, we're in a unique situation. I knew we had some club guys coming over, but there was no guarantee that they would all be on the team and tryouts coming in and everything. So I really had to just put a lot of faith in them. And, I mean, I had talked to Coach Holman 2 or 3 times on the phone and then came to visit, and I felt like he just has this presence about him that you feel like, you've known him your entire life. And, so it was just after visiting and having that feel for him and the rest of the staff. I mean, I grew up, I'd always talk to Coach Gitz. I used to go to the Final Four every year with my dad, and and it was just crazy. Like, that was one of the first Final Fours I went to, was when he won a national championship with Virginia. So it was cool to see that. And then I was a huge UNC fan growing up, watching Coach Marcus and all the other UNC.
Well, it's funny because I've seen some of the teams that you guys play against when the games are over, and they kind of gravitate toward those guys because, for folks that don't really follow lacrosse, I mean, on our staff, we have Team USA competitors. And arguably in Coach Holman, and you could argue, well, they'd argue with each other, but the others, that some of the best lacrosse players this country has to offer. And well, I really want to applaud you. I think it takes a lot of courage to come across the country. I know you had some injuries that you fought through, and now as we sit today, you're team captain, you're leading the team and scoring, but you're also pursuing your master's, and whatever happens next, you're going to have everything you need. But the last question I have, which I get a lot, is, where do you think this program is going to be? If you had to predict, and you've got the remainder of this season, you're going to leave your mark, but where do you think this program is going to be in 5 years?
I really do see them being a perennial in the lacrosse community. I mean, the coach's goal is to make it the best program in college lacrosse, and I don't think he's going to stop until they get there. I mean, just the messages they preach on a daily basis and what they're instilling in us, I just don't see how, and the progress we've already made in such a short period of time, I don't see how that isn't possible.
Well, we're aligned there, and the proof in that is obviously how far you guys have come competitively. You mentioned a few close losses, but they're close losses, right? Yeah. But then you look at our attendance. I mean, we built this really beautiful soccer lacrosse stadium, and our lacrosse team hasn't been able to play in it yet on the weather, big part of it, but also because we're averaging over 2,000 plus folks, which I believe, Jimmy, puts us in the top 4 in attendance in the country. So I think we're off and running in a great way. But I will close with this. Again, thank you for coming here today, but your leadership in the program. And, it's an interesting experience. If you look at the thousands of student athletes at the universities across the country, not many of them are having the experience you have, launching a program and then accelerating that program. And you'll always have that, and you'll always be a part of our start. So you're always welcome back. But I also want to encourage all our fans to keep coming that have been, but also bring friends. It is such an exciting game to watch. It's, you watch it for 5 minutes, you can figure out what's going on if you're not a part of it. The physicality, the speed, the athleticism, the coaching, it's really been remarkable. So thank you for everything you're doing, Jimmy. Keep it up.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me.
You bet.
And welcome back to the March edition of the Here From Harlan podcast. Mike Lagerschultz alongside Mark Harlan. And Mark, I think it's always fun when you hear an athlete almost sound like their head coach. I mean, the message has gotten through to Jimmy Perkins. One thing that stood out to me about what he said is just Brian Holman has this presence that just permeates. And I walked by one of their practices before they went Division I a couple years ago. Brian was talking to his team, and I stopped and listened. And I've been around a lot of coaches, and just the way he talks to his team, his presence, his message, his goals that he has in mind that he just drives home. Impressive guy. I don't think it's any surprise he's been the choice to build a program here and already off to a pretty good start in his second year at Division I.
Yeah, and I think with Jimmy, I think you said it right. I mean, he's echoing his coach, and that's the kind of coach you want to echo.
Right.
I mean, Jimmy is a great example of someone that Brian was able to, have come here and flourishing. He's just doing so well in school. He's a captain, etc. But Brian does have that aura. He's what I refer to as a whole person coach. Mm-hmm. Obviously, performance on the field and the classroom is very important, but he also demands a lot from his young people, and he wants them to be better men than when they arrived. And I think that's something that we're really proud of. And he's done a great job. It's a very unique situation that Brian's in.
Yeah.
Creating something from scratch and bringing it forward to the way he has been really, really, really impressive. And and just really honored that he's here. I'm really honored he's our coach. I love his staff. But I also want to take a minute to thank the fans that have been coming out to lacrosse. It's been remarkable to have these numbers when we had to open up additional concession stands. And we still don't know exactly what we're going to do going forward. The weather's getting better. I think that stadium that we built for them, the soccer lacrosse, I'm interested to see what that looks like when it's just crazy packed. So
Absolutely.
we still may do that in March. So more to come on that. But really excited about where we are right now with our lacrosse program.
All right, before we move on to some other topics, we want to talk about tennis, Mark. The women's tennis team just had a big win over a ranked team, an upset over number 33 Denver a few weeks ago. Men's tennis, undefeated 12-0 at home to start their season.
Yeah, tennis has just been off to a great start. I mean, it was fun to go support the women's team on Friday night when they beat BYU for the 11th straight time. So, Witt's trying to go for 10 this fall. Tennis is already at 11, but, the crowds have been good. The girls and the guys have been playing really, really well. And, it's just, again, the Eccles family and others step forward to produce that incredible tennis facility. We'll move outdoors to another incredible facility that they all helped us build. And coaches are doing great stuff. The kids are doing really well. It's a program that really is on the rise.
All right, Mark, we'll get to some fan questions in a little bit, but first off, some other topics we want to get into around the country. A possible change to the NCAA Division I transfer policy that's surfaced. So your thoughts on that and how it's developing?
Well, I think what we're going to see, in July, it'll get formalized. I believe in March. We'll have to wait and see, but I believe that'll happen is kind of an equalization of the rules across all the platform of NCAA sports, whereby if you want to transfer one time during your college undergraduate career, you can do that. Right now in the sport of men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball, ice hockey, and football, you have to sit a year in residency unless there's an extenuating circumstance to allow you to play right away. With the proliferation of kids moving, the folks that handle the appeals process are getting overrun. I think there's been questions about why this kid can sit, why this kid can't sit. And probably the most relevant question is, why in those sports do you have to? Mm-hmm. So I think the NCAA has kind of come to the determination that we need to equalize those sports. We're going through a process now where the conferences are coming forward with their opinions about it. I do believe it's a fait accompli, quite candidly. I think it's going to happen. And so my job is to make sure that Utah handles it the best possible way. We met with our head coaches last week. I said it's not a matter of really if, it's a when, and I think the win's going to be this summer. And, you just got to have a culture where kids want to stay, and we know it's not for everybody, and Utah will benefit. We'll have great kids coming in. We'll have great kids that are leaving too, and that's always a hard thing to manage, but it is a new day. Movement is coming. We just have to really make sure that, people's experience here, the stuff that we can control, we control it, and we move forward. But, belly aching about it, complaining about it, I don't see how that helps. It's just a matter of really handling it in the best possible way.
There seems to be a theme of, player, student-athlete rights and their flexibility, and also recognizing when you're 15, 16 years old, you make decisions sometimes you think, 2 years down the road, I made the wrong one. And this kind of gives them a chance to go back and say, I made a mistake, let's fix it, and not have to sit out a year as part of that process.
Well, and I know there's opinions all over the board on this, and in my position, I get to talk to a lot of these kids that make decisions to move on, and it's sometimes you hear the rationale and it's a head scratcher. Sometimes it makes perfect sense. Every kid is different, and I think just like anything else, things change, and I think the programs that figure out a way to manage that change, whether coming in or coming out, young people will be the best going forward. But it is a new day. Student athletes are going to have more rights, and by, that's a good thing.
Absolutely. All right, spring football got underway this week. The spring game coming up April 11th, 11 a.m. in Rice Eccles. If you've driven by Rice Eccles Stadium, there's some dirt being moved around down there, dump trucks lined up. The process is underway for the expansion of Rice Eccles Stadium in the Ken Garff Performance Zone. It's an exciting time to drive by that facility, Mark, and see what's going on.
Well, it really is. They're really digging deep.
They
literally
are
right now.
Yeah.
And they're down to all the infrastructure that's below, that whole end zone area there in the south, and Leighton Construction and the team are doing a great job. And we're right on time with everything we're trying to do. The products are being sold very effectively. Excited about where we're at and all of that. But now we have hit that place where we're, contingency plans that we're already put in place on how we will manage stadium events. We've had lacrosse events. Obviously, the South has been closed, but we will have it completely ready to go for this fall in terms of people being able to manage around the construction zone, being able to sit in their seats in the South, until it's completed fully in 21. So a lot of activity. I think the big news since we last spoke, Mike, was the cauldron move.
Right.
And that took some drama. I know helicopters were flying over filming it. It was a lot heavier than we all thought. So we had to bring in a bigger crane, and it's now off-site, being refurbished, and it will come back. We're really crossing our fingers that it'll be in place for the BYU game in its new location for folks to see it, take pictures, and more to come, right? If it comes out the way I hope so, we might be able to have some fun with it during games. So we'll get back to folks on that. But excited about where the construction is. As far as spring football, yes, started yesterday. Didn't get a chance to go out there. Heard great things. A lot of teaching going to be going on. A lot of new people in the program. Mixed with some veterans that I think are not being talked about a lot, particularly on our offensive line and other areas kind of around. But I know in a lot of individual coaches, including Coach Whittingham that I've talked to down there, it's exciting because they're teachers. At the end of the day, they're teachers. And I think that they're excited about putting it all together and a lot of competition, which is a really, really good thing.
All right, Mark, let's get to some questions sent in via social media, some really good ones this go around. I forgot to mention we had 9 players in the NFL scouting combine last weekend. Yeah, best in the conference, Javelin Guidry. First guy with his 40 time, and also combine that with his weightlifting, the best mark in since 2006, what he combined there. And with him doing so well, Sunday, a fan wondering, Mark, do you think at some point we have a men's track program put in here at the U to help guys like Javelin?
Well, let me talk real quick about Javelin. So Javelin obviously is an elite runner, one of the tops in the country, and he has been running indoor for the last couple of years in the spring. I don't know if a lot of folks know that. As a matter of fact, we were able to, per NCAA rules, able to fly him to different competitions last year on the indoor season. When it got to outdoor, it got a little into spring football. So he primarily did indoor and was, top 6, I think, in the world at one point. So unbelievable on that. People talk about the correlation between track and field and football, and I think it's fair to say that it's helpful to have it there, but I don't know if it's truly a mark that is really important in all regards. We do not have any plans right now to have a men's track team. Obviously we've talked about lacrosse in this podcast, and that's where we've gone in the last few years, but we never shut anything down, mind you, but it's not in our strategic plans right now.
All right, another question, Mark, asking with the expansion to Rice-Eccles Stadium, parking expansion has been brought up. Any thoughts of building a garage west of the stadium in that lot? Any thoughts on that, Mark, down the road?
The university, is going through a lot of different, studies as it relates to the growth. Obviously the more kids living on campus with the new dorms that are opening up, particularly this August. And of course, part of that is parking and, garages are always looked at. They've added garages. Garages are extremely expensive to build.
Yes.
You really have to have a lot of planning as it goes to that. As it relates to our football games, we are in complete national standard alignment with as many parking spots that are available for the amount of people, and that remains the same as we go into the 51,000 number in 21. That being said, we've done a lot of studying on parking. One of the things we noticed is a lot of unused spots. I know people are frustrated sometimes when they have to park a little bit further out than they'd like, and then they walk through lots that are half full in a stadium that is primarily filled. And, we're looking at various reasons for that. Some of them are fabulous, right? The track ridership goes up every year. I think we're almost up to 24%.
That's what I heard this morning,
which is an incredible number. That's a big part of it. But candidly, and I know this has been hard for some people to fully understand, and we want to continue to have the conversation, we give out free parking to season ticket holders and that are part of our Crimson Club. And we're the only school in the league, and frankly, the only school in Power 5 that does that. So we did make a decision to go ahead and charge for that. And the reason being there is we believe if people really want it and are going to use it, they're going to pay for that. It's $100. It's a lot cheaper per season than to drive up individually and pay on game day. And therefore, now we can kind of see where the lots are, the utilization of the lots. And as we get into 21 with a higher capacity, then we'll be in a better position. So we want to continue to have that conversation, explain the why that we're doing it, but we really do think it will streamline and create a better parking situation for everybody.
Yeah, Mark, you mentioned parking. There is the one pass for $100. There's also a lower tiered one for $50 if you want to be a little bit farther away. And I get it, people want to tailgate and so forth. So I think that the new plan in place is let's see if people really want these, that they pay for them to do, and that might cut down some empty spots that have been frustrating people. I think it's a great process. Talking about the stadium expansion some more, Mark, any plans to hold events other than football and lacrosse there down the road?
Well, that's always been part of the thinking when we looked at the feasibility. You go over 50,000 and you're kind of in a new level as it relates to outside people that want to come in, right? I mean, we know there's been some standard motocross here and some other things that go down, but I think we will, if you consider the new premium seating as a part of that, the new locker rooms areas and club areas that would be good for different folks to come in. But that's our friends at Auxiliary Services that schedule that. So I believe they'll have more of an opportunity to do that. We still have to realize we're on a university campus and there's a lot of other activity you have to consider, but I imagine that there will be more activity for sure.
Another question about parking. This one related to men's basketball, asking why there's been more pay lots added instead of open parking. I can get to that one, Mark. When the new dormitory complex went into the lot east of the Huntsman Center, that displaced all those people, and there was kind of a domino effect. So, yes, there's been some parking eliminated. And I talked to some folks this morning, Mark. The same group looking into the football parking is going to look into basketball and say, hey, are these spots really being used? Can we reevaluate the allocation of permits? I think they're going to get to that at some point.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think we're doing the same kind of, as you said, we're doing the same kind of study. I mean, we do know in those beautiful new dorms, which open, and by the way, our student athletes, a lot of them will live in there now. It took out a bunch of parking. It has not been easy. We recognize that. We appreciate the folks that are taking tracks, which is also on a larger percentage increase, but we need to look at that. We're still having a lot of empty spots that people can't get into. So we're going to continue to study that. More to come.
Yeah, and the big picture is they're trying to make this more of a non-commuter campus, more of a residential campus. And if you're going to do that, you need dormitories and beds, and that's kind of what's happening over the last couple of years. Another question here, Mark, on scheduling. They applaud you and your efforts for the football games being announced. LSU just announced recently coming down the road, Florida coming in a few years. Can we look for a similar effort being made in men's basketball down the road with fewer non-conference games now? Those games are especially more critical that we see in November and early December.
Well, I appreciate the comments about football scheduling. I know it was a big news to be able to get that out, people's excitement, and really give Gavin Gow and certainly Kyle Brennan a lot of plaudits for that. They spent a lot of time working on that, particularly the LSU game, and excited that all came together. And we still got a few more that we're trying to close. Basketball is a different animal altogether. Basketball is primarily done out of the basketball office, in this case, Andy Hill. Now Donnie Daniels as well work with it. They talk to Kyle Brennan. They talk to I about certain things. We know the Pac-12 has put in new restrictions about you can't play teams that are over a certain amount in the RPI over the last 3 years, along with, as the question alluded to, the fact that we have 2 less games. Now we're going to go to a 20-game conference season. It's a mix. You got to be able to really schedule and predict. We certainly want to have a Big Ten type opponent in Huntsman every year, or somebody that's excited, that we're all excited about, mixed in with others that you need to get the W's.
Right.
So it's kind of a mix. It's something that we do collaboratively work on, no question. And it's becoming more immediate. It used to be you were kind of a year behind in basketball. Well, now you really get after it at the end of the season. The other thing with BYU, we're going to a home-and-home format with BYU going forward. So a lot of balls in the air there, but that's a collaborative effort.
All right, some great questions. We appreciate those sent in over the weekend via Twitter. Well, Mark, that will do it for us. Jam-packed show. Lots going on as always in March. We appreciate the time, and have a good trip down to Vegas coming up.
I appreciate it, Mike, as always, and appreciate all our fans who will see you in Vegas and all the other events going forward. We can't do it without you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mark. That will do it for the March edition of the Hear From Harlan podcast. Thanks to Jimmy Perkins of Men's Lacrosse for joining us. For Mark Harlan, I'm Mike Lagesholt. So long, everybody.
This has been the Hear It From Harlan podcast. Subscribe and listen all year long as we keep you up to date on Utah athletics.